I moved to a quiet town to get away from everything. Bad relationships, noisy cities, a life that never seemed to settle. I found a small cottage outside the main part of town, isolated, peaceful, with woods behind it and a single road leading in. It was exactly what I needed. For the first few months, nothing strange happened. But that changed on a Tuesday night. It was around 11 p.m., and I was finishing up some paperwork when I heard a knock at my back door. I froze. That door faced the woods. There was no reason for anyone to be there. I hadn't told anyone I lived here. No friends. No neighbors close enough to drop by. I stood slowly, crept to the kitchen, and peeked out the curtain. No one. But the knock came again, 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Closer this time. Like whoever it was waiting for me to answer. I flipped on the porch light. The moment it came on, I heard movement, something running off into the woods. I should have called the cops then, but I didn't. Maybe it was a prank, some teens messing around. 2 nights later, it happened again. This time it was the front door. Knocking. 5 times. A little more frantic. I checked the peephole, no one. But something was left on the mat. A torn photograph. It was of my old apartment in the city. The building. My unit window. Circled in red pen. I called the sheriff's office. The dispatcher took my name, told me to wait for a deputy. He never showed. I called again the next morning. They claimed they had no record of my call. I asked for a patrol car to come by. They promised to send one. That night, I stayed up waiting. Around 2 a.m., the knock came again. Back door, then the front, then both alternating like a sick game. I called 911, no answer. Just a long, dead tone. Then my cell buzzed. Unknown caller. I didn't answer, but they left a voicemail. When I played it back, all I heard was my own voice whispering, "Don't tell them." I disconnected the landline the next day. Burned the photo. Bought motion lights and cameras. Installed locks on every door and window. I even drove to the police station in person. They listened politely. Took notes. Then one of the officers leaned in and said something I'll never forget. "We don't have a record of your address in our system." I blinked. "Excuse me? That location doesn't come up in our dispatch log. Never has." I showed him my ID, my deed, even a screenshot from Google Maps. He looked uneasy, said he'd follow up and sent me home. But nothing changed. If anything, things got worse. Some mornings, I'd find boot prints in my yard. Always muddy. Always circling the house. Once there were 2 sets. My cameras, all wiped. Footage gone. I started sleeping during the day. Staying up at night, shotgun next to me. Then one night, I heard something new. Voices. Whispering. Inside the house. I grabbed the gun and moved room to room. Nothing. Until I reached the attic. There, written on the wall in something brown and dry, were the words, "They don't protect you because they can't." I moved out the next morning. I packed a single bag and drove without stopping for 6 hours. I stayed in a motel 2 towns over. But on the second night, I heard a knock. Not at the door. At the window. 3rd floor. I opened the curtain, and taped to the glass was another photo. This one was me, standing outside my new motel. It was taken that day. There was a note on the back. "It's not the house we follow. It's you." I ran. I don't stay anywhere more than a week now. No phones. No paper trail. And I don't call the police anymore. Because now I understand. They don't help because they're part of it. I've always been careful. I lock my doors. I carry pepper spray. I walk in well-lit places. I've read all the safety blogs and watched every documentary on how to spot danger. But none of it helped me when the real danger came in the form of someone who already knew how to slip past all of it. It started with emails. At first, they were generic. "Hey, I saw you the other day. Nice outfit today." That kind of thing. I assumed it was spam. But then they got personal. "I liked the way you smiled at the barista today. You shouldn't wear those red sneakers. They draw too much attention." And then, "I know you live on the 3rd floor. I wonder what your bathroom window looks like from the fire escape." That's when I realized I was being watched. I live alone in a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood. 3rd floor. Only one fire escape. It ends by my bathroom. I called the police. They said to block the email address. I asked if they could trace it. They said it wasn't threatening enough to investigate. I asked about filing a report. They took some notes. Said they'd monitor the situation. A week later, I found a note slipped under my door. It just said, "They won't help you. They're not here right now." But I am. I sent a photo of the note to the officer I spoke with. He responded the next day, still not a direct threat. That night, I heard someone trying the lock. Not subtle, not rushed, just methodical, like he was taking his time. I called 911. They transferred me 3 times and then hung up. When I called back, I got a recording. I sat in the dark with a knife in my hand and waited. Whoever it was never got in. I don't know why. But the next morning, I found 3 fingerprints on my doorknob. I took photos, sent them to the police, asked them to come take prints. They said the prints would have to be collected within 24 hours, and they were too busy that week. I asked if they had any record of my 911 call. They didn't. I started documenting everything. I got a small camera. I set it up in the living room. I even installed a second lock. It didn't stop him. He started leaving things outside my door. A button from my coat, a fork I recognized from my kitchen, my missing toothbrush. Each time, I bagged the item, labeled it, and emailed the officer. He never responded again. So I went down to the station. They said he was on extended leave. I asked for someone else to take over. They said unless there was video evidence of someone actively trying to harm me, there wasn't much they could do. So that's what I did. I baited him. I pretended to leave town. Told a fake friend on a loud phone call I'd be gone for the weekend. But I stayed home in the dark, camera ready. He came. At 2:47 a.m., the lock turned. I don't know how he got a key. He stepped inside, slowly, like he'd done it before. I watched him in the dark from the kitchen. My hands were shaking so hard I thought he'd hear them rattling the cabinet. He moved toward my bedroom. I locked the front door behind him. Then I flipped the lights on and screamed at the top of my lungs. He bolted, crashing into the door, fumbling with the lock. But he got away. The video was perfect. Clear. Identifiable face. You could see him enter with a key, hear my screams. I brought it to the station. They took it, looked uncomfortable, then asked me to wait in the lobby. 2 hours passed. Finally, a new officer came out. He told me the man was a former officer. Suspended, but still had friends inside. I asked why they didn't tell me this before. He looked at me and said, "Because some people wanted this to go away quietly." I asked what would happen next. He said, "Off the record, you should move." That was it. No arrest. No charges. Just advice to disappear. I packed up that night. I don't know where he is now. But some mornings, I wake up to find a single piece of mail in my box. No stamp. No return address. Just a blank envelope. Every time I get one, I look up at the sky. Because I know he's close. And I know the people who were supposed to protect me were never on my side to begin with. A few months ago, I moved into a house my uncle left me. It was sudden. He died in what the coroner called an accident, though no one explained much else. I hadn't spoken to him in years. He was always a quiet, jittery man, but he owned a decent 2-story home near the edge of a small, almost forgotten town. Everyone there looked like they'd lived their whole lives in one long, hushed secret. I moved in a week after the funeral. I didn't think much about it. Free house, no mortgage, just dust and creaky stairs. At worst, I figured I'd flip it or rent it out. The first strange thing I noticed was that the basement door had a padlock on it, from the outside, like it was locking someone in. The key wasn't among the others he left behind. So I pried it open with a crowbar. The door creaked like it hadn't moved in years. When I turned on the single dangling bulb, I saw a mostly empty basement, old boxes, broken chairs, some mold on the walls. But something felt off. There were scratch marks on the concrete, long ones, like someone had been dragged, or had clawed at the floor trying to escape. I told myself it was just rats. Big ones. Then I found the second door. It was behind a shelf. Small metal and bolted shut. No knob. No light. I asked a neighbor about it a few days later. He looked at me too long and said, "Didn't know this place still had that. Thought it was sealed years ago." I asked what it was. He mumbled something about the 90s. Something about a local man who got too curious. Then he walked away. I opened the hidden door 2 nights later. I had to use tools, screwdriver, crowbar, hammer. It came off with a scream of rust. Inside was a narrow hallway. Stone walls. No lights. I used my phone's flashlight. At the end of the hall was a small metal table, a broken camera, and a stack of VHS tapes, each labeled with dates. The most recent? 2 weeks before my uncle died. I took them upstairs and borrowed a player from a local pawn shop. The first few tapes were grainy surveillance footage, of the basement. You could see a man pacing, talking to himself, sometimes screaming. That man was my uncle. He was always alone, but he talked to someone. Said things like, "I told them I wouldn't tell. You can't keep making me watch. They don't believe me, but I see it. It comes at night." One tape showed him pointing at the camera, eyes wide. He whispered, "They said they'd help me. They never did. It's all recorded." Another tape showed someone else. A man in uniform, police. He stepped into frame, looked at the camera, and smashed it with a baton. I took that tape to the police. The woman at the front desk barely looked at it. She said, "We can't take personal tapes as evidence." I told her it might show a crime. She said, "We don't investigate tapes. Bring us something official." I left it with her anyway. 2 days later, someone broke into the house. They didn't take anything, but all the tapes were gone. All except one. The very first. It had a different label. Not a date. Just a name, Officer Remick. I watched it that night. It showed my uncle in a room, not the basement. A white room with one chair and a steel table. He was talking to someone off camera. He said, "This is illegal. You can't keep them down there." The voice replied, "You don't understand what you're dealing with." My uncle snapped back, "They're people." The voice, "They were." "Not anymore." Then the tape cut out. That was it. I tried calling the department again. No one answered. When I drove there the next day, the building was closed. Boarded up. Abandoned. An old man across the street told me the station had shut down 3 years ago after a scandal. Said something about officers going missing, something about a cell that was never on the official blueprints. I drove home and found my front door open. No signs of forced entry. Nothing missing. But there was a single note on the kitchen table. "Some rooms are sealed for a reason. Keep digging and you'll join them." That night, I heard banging beneath the floorboards. I didn't sleep. The next morning, the basement door was shut again. And the padlock was back, new, polished, and locked. I didn't put it there. I tried to break it again. It wouldn't budge. It's like whatever's behind that door doesn't want out anymore. But sometimes I hear it whisper. And when I called the police one last time, a voice answered. Not the usual operator. Just 3 words before the line went dead. "We warned you."